Everybody, I'm going to use my gavel tonight. And one bang, yes. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. It's April 17th, Monday, and we're at Poolesville Town Hall for another Poolesville Town Commissioners meeting. Behind the table, all the commissioners are here, as well as Town Manager Wade Yost, Assistant Town Managers Niles Anderegg. Say that right this time, Niles? I've been practicing. Good. Various members of the audience. It look like a bunch of them have signed up to speak, which is awesome. And we're going to get ready to go. So, Jeff, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thanks, Jeff. Very much appreciate it. Good job as always. So before we get into commissioner reports, could we do our announcements? Who has announcements for us tonight?
I have several.
Let's start with you. So you're eager, and I appreciate that.
Okay, well, I did collect several. So on April the 28th, there is an Untamed on the Commons from 6 to 11 p.m. In Wayland Commons, there'll be a food truck, games, music, a Top Gun movie featuring a Jaws of Life demonstration by the Upper Montgomery Volunteer Fire Station. Also, there's going to be a Haunted Histories of the Ag Reserve on April 20th by Lennon Gross and Christine Ray. Thursday, April the 20th from 6 to 8 at Alden Farms. The Maryland Department of Health, as of April 24th, the Maryland Go Vax call center are transitioning to 211. So Marylanders can still receive information and referrals regarding COVID-19 resources by calling 211 or texting your zip code to 898-211. A couple of fire station announcements. We recently had several CPR AED classes, April the 1st and April the 15th recently. We have another one coming up on May the 13th, which is already sold out. And we're scheduling CPR AED for Barnesville in May. Softball resumes at the fire station. I think it's Friday, April the 21st. Come out to the pavilion behind the fire station. Enjoy grilled hot dogs, hamburgers, soft drinks, ice cream, etc. WUMCO, a note from Kate Longbreak, Executive Director of WUMCO. Needs continue to be high at the WUMCO food pantry. We need help to keep food on our shelves. Anything is appreciated, but we are particularly low on SpaghettiOs or similar, mac and cheese, jelly, cooking oil, soup, especially chicken noodle soup, and rice. Food can be dropped off anytime in the box in the Pike and Villega parking lot or brought to WUMCO on Elgin Road. The Upper Montgomery Volunteer Fire Station is working towards having a certified child passenger safety seat technician. And this will provide one-on-one personalized instructions from a Maryland State Certified Child Passenger Safety Seat Technician on how to properly use their child's car seat. Another announcement from the fire station, bingo on Friday, May the 5th. And this will be the last bingo of the season. Another announcement from the fire station, spaghetti and meatballs dinner on Saturday, April the 22nd from 5:30 to 8:30. Includes salad, dinner, beverage, and dessert. Another announcement from the fire station, the Pit Barbecue will return on Saturday, May the 20th. Pulled pork and roast beef, sandwiches or platters, coleslaw, baked beans, 11 a.m. until sold out, and it sells out pretty quick. From MML, we wanted to share information from MML's the Maryland Municipal League about ongoing discussions at the state level about cannabis legislation and implementation. The state MML leads are requesting that MML members consider sending a note to encourage more revenue sharing with local municipalities. You probably got that email as well as I did. Here's a important announcement from the Community Farm Share. So Community Farm Share is working with local farmers social workers, residents, public and private organizations to build and strengthen the local food economy in Montgomery County. Our team is growing fast and we need your help. Last year, we invested over $100,000 into our 7 local small-scale farm partners and reached 132 families. This year, we are scaling up our operations to deliver weekly produce to 285 families from 9 farm partners. To do that, we are launching the Farm Share Hub. The hub is where farmers deliver their food and where CFS, that's Community Farm Share, and volunteers pack the produce into individual bags so that we can deliver those bags to families in our program. This gift registry is dedicated entirely to the operations of the Farm Share Hub. If you have any of the items and would like to donate instead of buying new, please contact us. And that is communityfarmshare.org. And there's a whole list of items that they had. A couple of interesting things from the Poolsville seniors, yeah. They're having bingo on April the 18th, that's tomorrow at 1 o'clock. They also have historic Ag Reserve Properties lecture by Kenny Scholes on April the 20th, also at 7 p.m. A Landmade, at the Landmade Brewery, Game Social, that's on April the 21st at 1:30 at Landmade. And I think I had something else here, yeah. So I also already mentioned WUMCO. And I met with Kate Longbreak earlier this week, I think it was, and they said their shelves were bare, so they really need some stocking up. And I think that might be it for that. A couple other interesting things, no doubt. So thanks to Wade. I think this is a really good progress. Thanks to Wade and to Niles that an outdoor AED will be installed at Stevens Park on June the 3rd. Yeah, cool. Good work. AED is automatic external defibrillator, of course. Poolsville Baptist Church, Pastor Joel Gilbert is having a Men of Poolsville breakfast on Saturday, April the 22nd at 8 a.m. at the church. Already mentioned that. When I got a message from a citizen, so I guess I'll bring it up later. That's it.
Thanks, Jeff. Are you sure you can't connect the fire department's spaghetti night with WUMCO's need for SpaghettiOs?
That is a good idea.
If you could mention to the people, I would
A very good
appreciate
idea.
that. Thank you for that. I'm listening on every word too. I'm letting you know that, and I appreciate it. Martin, what do you have for us announcement
I
wise?
don't have the announcements tonight.
Got it. Sarah?
I don't have any announcements.
Ed?
I believe Jeff covered them all. We're good. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks,
In
Jeff.
town and out of town.
That's right. Everywhere around town. Round as a spaghetti-o. All right, Jeff and everybody else, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Martin, are you ready to tell us about your planning commission updates?
I'm ready. So we met last week. Chuck Stump's first meeting. He dove right in and did great. I think to me, it reaffirmed that we made a great selection. Poolsville Green came in to address us to talk about climate change, and Joyce, Joyce here? Yeah, Joyce was here, and she encouraged us to make all of our decisions micro and macro, like through the lens of like climate change and what that's going to do, the impacts of that. And she encouraged us to read the IPCC report, which I forwarded to all of you just a few minutes ago. And Joyce said at the very least that we should read the summary.
The only thing I sent was a summary.
Yeah, okay, good. Sustainable Poolsville came and gave some feedback and suggested a chapter in the comprehensive plan about sustainability, which we haven't decided whether we're going to do that or not. There's already a lot of stuff in there about sustainability. We're not sure if we're going to give it like a dedicated chapter or not, but they had good information and good suggestions. We worked on Chapter 9, which is the Environmental Resources in Sensitive Areas chapter. I pressed them a little bit on the timeline at Wallace Montgomery, and it seems that we are about halfway done, and we're looking at probably late summer, early fall to be wrapped up. And originally, I think the estimate was like early summer, and the gentleman from Wallace Montgomery, Michael, was saying when he originally gave us that estimate, like he's used to working with full-time planning commissioners who, like, and he didn't want to dump all this work on us, because we all have like families and lives and stuff. So we're working through it pretty quickly. We've even to try to speed things up, agreed to do a couple work sessions, the first of which will be 4/26. Those are open to the public, but there will be no public comment. It's just a work session. It's not a regularly scheduled meeting. And so that was the only thing really on our agenda was the comprehensive plan. And then we also heard from Sustainable Poolsville and Poolsville Green, and that was it. Any questions? Okay.
Thanks, Martin, for that. Appreciate the update. Looking forward to hearing and seeing more about the comprehensive plan. I know you guys have been putting a lot of work into it. Jeff, if you could take us through the Parks Board.
Well, this will be very short because our Parks Board meeting was canceled because a number of our folks were away on holiday, so we did not have a meeting in April.
Okay, very good. Ed, what do you have for us?
All right, with Sustainable Poolsville, our next meeting is actually on the 26th, but here are just a couple of updates. First, thank you to Wade and Niles. I know you all met with Don to start looking at how to strengthen that communication among the different committees that we have. And then also just thank you to Poolsville Green partnering up with the Pick It Up Poolsville campaign. And so something was really impressive. Dan Savino, he led a group for Poolsville, for Pick It Up Poolsville on the 11th of April, and they picked up 273 pounds of trash. He brought out his scale, and they went from Poolsville High School all the way going out to West Offutt. And then the other group, they met this past weekend at Elgin Park, and they got a 13-gallon bag of recycle and a 13-gallon bag of trash. So it was nice to see that Sustainable Poolsville move of Pick It Up Poolsville is picking up steam. Other than that covers it for Sustainable Poolsville.
Thank you, sir. Sarah?
All right. There's a lot to cover with Pair Access, so I'm also going to invite
Yeah, I'll dive in.
Ed, Jim, Link, if there's anything that you guys want to add at any point. Kind of the big news is that the first 3/4 of our meeting on Thursday, we were meeting with some representatives from MCPS, including Robert Riley, the Associate Superintendent for Finance, Chris Cram, the Director of Communications, Diane Morris, the Associate Superintendent, and for the Poolsville Cluster, and then Eric Gierci, the Assistant to the Chief of Staff. And they gave us a fantastic presentation about the increased funding that the school board is asking for, including money that would be put towards increasing space for increased enrollment across the county, making adjustments for inflation and other costs that have all gone up. Employee compensation, we found out that our starting salary in Montgomery County is 5th in the state. And so we're trying to be more competitive so we can keep the great educators that we have in our school system. And then some accelerator programs. So some of the things that came out of that felt at least pertinent to families out here would be that with this new budget, it would pay for all AP class or AP test registration for any of the students who take AP classes at the high school. They wouldn't have to pay the additional fee to register and take the test and get that college credit, which is kind of exciting. Link followed up with them, and in the meeting, I thought you did such a great job, Link, of kind of trying to pin down a guarantee that, especially if we support these budget increases, that Poolsville is going to get the things we've been asking for, especially with the new high school. And they gave us a verbal update on the gym, the new gym that we've requested. And they should have plans for us to view and have a public viewing of that soon. We also, Link pushed them on the wellness center. Right now, we only have funding for the planning of a wellness center, and we are trying to push for the funding for the actual wellness center. We have a meeting next Wednesday with, I'm blanking. Yeah, Keisha Davis, the director, health director, and also potentially another one of the, Lorianne Sales, another one of the council members. So hopefully we'll continue to advocate for that and get those the funding for those wellness centers nailed down. We did also press them on, are there other revenue generating ideas that haven't been explored yet, or what has been explored, other than or in addition to the sales tax being proposed by the county executor right now, the 10%, I'm sorry, property tax, not sales tax, the 10% increase in property tax. These were not the folks to have those answers, so we will be at least following up over email and maybe phone call with the people who would be able to answer those questions. We had all of our principals from our local schools there and some really good public comment. Yeah, anything else that
so-
you'd want to add?
One of the other things we talked about with them, and Sarah, you can elaborate on it, but we talked about just creative programming. What would creative programming look like, taking the region that we're in with the Ag Reserve? What kind of things can be done here at the high school beyond just the traditions, beyond the things that they're currently doing? We also talked about the need to have programming that supports students who might not be going on that traditional college pathway, but getting them involved with apprenticeships, internships, trade schools. And so that was part of the discussion. So there'll be some follow-up discussion about innovative programs that would incorporate the Ag Reserve. So I think that covers it.
Yeah, Christine Ray did a fantastic kind of on-the-fly presentation about, maybe we have an ag magnet program at some point where the county or the school system owns a farm and works with students to have it as a teaching facility as well as a way to grow food that would then supplement the budget for the schools as well. So some creative ideas were bounced around, and some good talk about vocational tech and some alternative paths. Anything you want to add, Jim, or Link, even if there's anything you want to add?
I mean, not about that meeting, and I can pass it to Link, but I just know we're going to be meeting, having our usual White's Ferry meeting with no end result planned so far. So Link and I'll be banging our heads up against the wall on a Zoom conversation here coming up.
Canceling history.
Right, canceling history, exactly. I like the approach. So we'll be doing that, and again, we've got various meetings set up with various people for advocacy, so it's easy to cover that way. And Sarah said the meeting was really effective the other night and a good one, and an amazing time to actually have very important members of the school board come up and visit us and want to talk about things. So it just shows how times have changed, and a good effort by all the commissioners and everybody that asked questions too, and Link for running it. Link, anything else you have?
Yeah, just one thing I want to make. This is and I said this at the meeting, this is a new territory. We've never really weighed in on an operating budget issue. It's always been specific capital projects that we've been focused on, like the community center and the school. And I made that clear to Monifa, and I made it clear to the MCPS that this is a heavy lift if we did do it, and we can't be out of sync with our PTAs. We're going to make sure we're with them too. And they haven't taken a position yet, as far as I know. So I did have a conversation with Andrew and with Marilyn, and they're both trying to come up with a different proposal, so there isn't a 10% tax increase, but it would probably be still 6%. And even they are supportive of this. So right now, the way I understand it, talking to Marilyn, if there was a vote right now on it, it would be 8-3, because they don't support a 10% tax increase. But they do support the money for the schools. They just got to try to find another way to do it.
And
So-
that's exactly what I felt like I was trying to make clear on our end too, that very much in support of the increased funding
Yeah.
for the schools.
Absolutely.
What other options do we have for
Right.
funding?
So,
Right.
thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Link. Appreciate that.
Good deal. Anything else? Panel? Nope. Very good. All right, we've got to go into public comment, and we've kind of got a disjointed sign-up order here, so I'm going to go in order of topic, if that's okay with everybody. Jerry, do you want to start off with your 3 minutes? It's not necessarily ladies first, no? You'll wait. Oh, I see. It's strategic planning on the on that. I got you. There's a check. He's keeping his powder dry, right. Joyce, do you want to come up next on this? Then ladies, you guys will be rolling right behind her.
Hi, how you doing this evening? Joyce Briner, Poolsville Green, Executive Director, nonprofit, and 2 Hackett Court, Poolsville. I think I've checked all the boxes there. If you don't mind, I'll just read this. I think it's the most efficient way. I missed the boat to request inclusion in this meeting, so I'm doing it here. Let's see. Since 2015, the county and more recently the whole region has been conducting an annual solar co-op managed by the Solar United Neighbors nonprofit. For most of those years, the town of Poolsville has been a promotional partner alongside other towns such as Rockville, Gaithersburg, and Tacoma Park. The co-op is made up of self-identified resident members interested in rooftop solar at a discounted rate. There is no cost to join the co-op. A subgroup of those residents select the vendor, and then each resident gets an independent bid on their home's project at no obligation to the homeowner. The 2023 solar co-op will be launched on May 15th and closed to new members on August 31st. To help get the word out to residents, communities, and municipalities and nonprofits are invited to be promotional partners. In exchange, the partner's logo is included on promotional materials, website, social media, etc. There is no cost to be a promotional partner other than printing of flyers for local citizens or other costs associated with the normal promotional kinds of things the town might do, such as adding info in a newsletter or and I would encourage low-cost or no-cost things like the town's electronic sign, appropriate text alert, or et cetera, things like that. The process is changing a little bit this year with the addition of a marketing partner called iChooser. I don't know really anything more about them than what you might have seen in any of the links that I sent in the email. Please see the attached as indicated in the email. Preferably, a decision by the commissioners would come at the May 1st meeting so that the co-op organizers could have time to add the town's participation to the marketing plan. And that's my request, is consider this promotional partnership with Solar United Neighbors. There's a partner introductory meeting coming in early May at the county DEP headquarters. It is my hope that Poolsville will again participate as a partner in letting citizens know about the solar co-op opportunity. This effort advances the transition to renewable energy, contributes to an energy independence, and plays a role in addressing the climate crisis. Poolsville Green independent nonprofit will be a partner as well. With the federal incentives recently updated by the Inflation Reduction Act and possible other incentives along with financing options through the Montgomery County Green Bank, there's never a better time for Poolsville residents to go solar. I'd like to add a couple of comments. I know this is getting long on a totally unrelated topic. We are having a webinar on the 27th of April. It's called Safer Playground Surfaces, Protecting Kids' Health. And I'll be sending out an invite through email. I just wanted to give you a heads up about that while I was sitting here.
Too, so that's awesome. Yeah, oh yeah. He's gotten it from everybody.
Just putting another plug.
Does anybody have any questions for Joyce on this? Wade, quick background. We've been supportive on this in the past.
Sure, every year, since 2015, we have supported this, and it was a partner in it, and doing the advertising and everything. So it's right in line with what we've been doing, and we should probably continue to do so.
Understood. Does anybody have a problem with moving forward with this tonight, so we don't have to wait till May
If
2nd?
we can make a motion and accept it,
We can,
I motion that we enter the partnership.
as per Joyce's request and
As
as
per
per the
Joyce's
guidelines,
request.
right,
In the
on it.
guidelines.
We'll get the wording right. Okay, good. That was still a good motion. We'll take it. Motion from Ed.
I second.
We have a second from Jeff. Appreciate that, both you guys. Anybody else have any questions on it? All approving the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Great. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Joyce. Appreciate it. See, you don't have to wait for May 2nd. We move quickly sometimes.
Great, thank you so much, I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your considered stewardship and leadership. We appreciate you. Very good. All right, from the remaining people that have signed up, Jerry apparently wants to be last. So of the 4 that are out there still that are signed up, or 3, does anybody have a preference to go first? I can just read them off right off the bat, and Elizabeth, you'd go first if you want it. Okay, come on up.
Aaron hasn't signed up yet this evening.
That's fine, and he can follow behind you if you want, or again, you guys determine the orders. You're the last, you're the speakers.
All right, okay. Elizabeth Carpenter, 17408 Hughes Road, Bullsville. Good evening. As you know, I recently found out that my application for a permit to keep pet hens will not be approved because the distance between my backyard and my neighbors' homes is less than 100 feet. After all that we have worked on to establish regulations to allow pet hens in Poolsville, I am really devastated that this is the case. I want you to know how much I have appreciated your support through this process. I'm asking you now to please amend the setback requirements from an adjacent dwelling to a more reasonable distance. At present, the 100-foot setback excludes residents who live on less than 1-acre lots from the ability to keep chickens. I would like to think that when you drafted these regulations that this was not your intention. In the research I have done, I learned that in Germantown, the distance a coop must be from an adjacent dwelling is 15 feet. In Gaithersburg, it is 30 feet. Barnesville is 50 feet, and in Rockville, it is 40 feet. In neighboring counties, Baltimore's setback is 30 feet. Howard County is 50 feet, Anne Arundel is 25 feet, and PG County is 50 feet. It seems that when writing our regulations, you may have defaulted to Montgomery County setbacks, which have not been updated like nearby counties and are excessive for a town like ours, with most lots being less than 1 acre. Through connecting with a group of advocates who have been working with Montgomery County to amend the 100-foot setbacks, I learned that this regulation has nothing to do with chickens. This group thoroughly researched the setback requirement and discovered that it was established to address concerns about pigeons. The 100-foot setback rule was intended to regulate racing pigeons, as they loiter within a 100-foot radius of their aviary and often defecate on adjacent property. Conversely, a 100-foot setback for pet hens is unreasonable because chickens are ground birds, cannot sustain flight, are contained in a coop, and do not encroach upon neighboring property. Consequently, the 100-foot setback regulations are inconsistent with existing regulatory frameworks that are successfully operating in neighboring municipalities. I apologize that this part of the legislation slipped under our radar during the final stages of discussing the new regulations, and that I must re-engage you all on this issue, but feel strongly that the 100-foot setback prohibits most residents in town who live on under 1 acre from being able to keep pet chickens. I believe in living in a community that is inclusive of hen keeping as a hobby, and that having a coop placed 40 to 50 feet from adjacent dwellings gives ample space between neighbors to peacefully coexist. I hope that you agree and urge you to amend this requirement for our community. Thank you for your consideration.
Can I ask you a question, Elizabeth?
Yes.
So if you were writing this ordinance, how many feet would you suggest?
I mean, it varies widely. Anywhere from 25 feet to 50 feet. And I understand that some of the thought process that went into establishing or maybe defaulting to the 100-foot setback was to be very conservative, to appease those people who are opposed to having chickens next door, right? But when this happened, when I applied for the permit, I had no idea how far 100 feet really looks like. Most people don't. I can conceptualize 6 feet thanks to COVID. Anything beyond that, forget it.
All right.
So I just want to ask for you to consider something that is reasonable, considering these are birds that are contained to a coop They're not allowed to fly around, nor could they really sustain flight. So the 100-foot setback is not relatable. It's irrelevant when it comes to keeping chickens in your backyard. So 40 to 50 feet, 50 feet is the most conservative that other counties have adapted and other municipalities have adapted. So that would be the most conservative, is 50 feet. Okay?
And I guess I have questions for you, Wade. Should I wait till everybody presents, or do you want me to ask them as I go?
Yeah, we should probably just hold on, have our discussion.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you,
it.
Elizabeth. Appreciate that.
Next up, we have Melissa. Or did you want? You can go in order. That's fine.
Hi, is it on? My name is Aaron Rosenswag. I live in Gaithersburg, not Poolesville. In 2014, my family looked to buying our first single-family home, and Poolesville was at the top of our list. We liked the schools, we liked the community, but when we read the fine print, chickens weren't allowed, so we moved to where we could have chickens, which would be Gaithersburg. No harm, no foul. And in the end, my daughter did go to Poolesville through the environmental science program, the magnet, and later went on to MIT, so we did fine. I read and I was excited that you did approve chickens, but the 100-foot setback I do think is excessive. And if you feel strongly about it, maybe you can put a way for people to get an exception, a special exception, so they go through a little bit more of a process where you think like, well, in this case, we'll make an exception because they seem like they got their act together. That would be a good way to do it. You asked a good question. What is a reasonable setback? I think if you have to have one, it would be probably 25 feet would be good, like they do in Annapolis. And Gaithersburg's 30 feet, something like that, if you have to have one. But, with backyard dogs, you don't have rules like that with backyard dogs. And it sounds kind of funny if I say backyard dogs, right? Who says that? They just say, I have a dog. Why do we say backyard chickens? I think the reason is because back and yard, those are 4-letter words. So is farm. And everybody likes to think about freedom. Some people want freedom to have chickens. Some people want freedom not to see chickens. And, dogs are working animals. I see them on a farm, just like chickens. But when chickens are pets, it's not quite the same. I went to the CDC to print out some information. I think dogs are great. I don't have anything against dogs, but for the number of diseases that dogs can give to humans, it's over 20. For chickens, it's about 5. And dogs can get you salmonella just as easily as chickens. Dogs have rabies, dogs have diseases that can cause us blindness. Chickens don't have any of that. So mostly when people are looking at getting rid of chickens, it's mostly a perception issue, not a factual issue. So I urge you to reconsider your setbacks. And to look at Elizabeth's house and see if it makes sense for her, and maybe give her a special exception if that's the best way to make everybody happy. Thank you.
Eric, thanks. It's good to see you again. I remember you now that you've been talking a little bit. We met way back then, too, when you were looking here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good to see you. I'm glad everything worked out for your family, too, and everything all the way down the line.
I appreciate
So,
it.
yep.
And I thank all of you for, you take time out of your day and your families to come here to listen to all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, very good. So back to Melissa.
Thank you. So my name is Melissa Mahalik, and I'm at Jerusalem Road in Poolesville, and I'm here to support Elizabeth with regard to the setback. I've owned chickens. I grew up with chickens. When I was a little girl, I grew up in a very small home with a very small backyard, and we had 3 chickens and never had a complaint from a neighbor. When I grew older, I had my own chickens in a small backyard, maybe about the size of this room. I had 6 of them, and my nearest neighbor was about 25 feet away. Honestly, they didn't even know that I had the chickens because I had a fence, and they never heard them. When they finally found out, they were glad to get the eggs. And I think it's really important to think about chickens, they're very different from other pets. They actually eradicate rodents. I didn't know this until I saw my chickens eat a mouse. So you don't have rodent problems if you have chickens. And honestly, in the dwellings that I lived in and had chickens, I've never had a problem. And with 6 chickens, honestly, 15 to 25 feet, I think is adequate. I can see 30 to 50, but I think 100 is very, very extensive. So I just want to offer my support and give you that bit of information. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Thanks, Melissa. Greatly appreciated. Lee?
Good evening. My name is Lee Pepper, 17248 Spates Hill Road. I have been born and raised in Poolesville. I'm here to support Elizabeth and her chicken application that she can have it reduced from 100 feet down to 25 or 30 or 35, whatever you think is reasonable. Side note there to what Aaron said, I have been training dogs for about 15 years now. One of my dog trainer friends actually has a pet chicken that she house trained. So it comes inside, goes outside. It's pretty cool. So don't be like closed-minded about chickens. Please be responsible as we are with responsible animal care. I think that Elizabeth will be a great chicken owner as she is with a 25-foot or 30-foot distance acceptance. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Lee. We appreciate that and always appreciate resident input, too. Jerry Klobakowski, are you up, sir?
Yes, sir.
Jerry Klobakowski, 17300 Fletchall Road, Poolesville, Maryland. I'm not sure if I understood or heard Sarah correctly, but does not MCPS currently have sufficient funds to build a larger gym? Or are they depending upon the increase in property tax money, and also whatever happened to the money that they go down to begging the state legislators for, which I think we got a pretty good size share of. So I'm not sure I understand. So do we have sufficient, does MCPS have sufficient money to build a larger gym right now? Okay, all right, because that sort of the way you said it. Okay. Okay, I have, with respect to this solar power ordinance or resolution you're talking about, I know everybody wants to go solar, everybody wants to not impact the environment. I have serious concerns about that with respect to other nations which are much larger, that are continuing to buy coal plants, like China and India and other places where they really don't care about the environment themselves, regardless of how rich or poor they are. But with respect to the application here in Poolesville, have we done a study that describes or defines all the power requirements by season, by department, by building, that solar and wind power will meet our requirements, in addition to those that a lot of other communities are also going for. So if you got 5 other communities asking, to use solar and clean energy, solar and wind power, and where is it all coming from? Is there going to be sufficient solar power to meet not only us, but all these other people? And also, does that mean we will no longer have to depend on Potomac Edison at all? Or will we not get the rebate or the offset that we're currently getting from our solar array that pays for a proportion of the electricity for the wastewater treatment plant and other buildings in Poolesville? Does this also include parks, streets, and recreation vehicles and equipment that will be powered by electricity? And what is the long-term costs that have been defined in order to ensure that we have sufficient power in the future for that particular department? What will happen if we experience a severe weather on the scale of Texas in 2020 or 2021, where the solar arrays and the wind power and even their power generation plants couldn't meet the demand. And if we had something like that, not only affecting Poolsville, but the wider region, because I can remember when there was an ice storm in upstate New York, actually, it was upstate New York and New England, and there were lines going down and transformers popping left and right. Will wind and solar power be able to meet our requirements during a severe weather environment? And the last thing is, I guess I'm sort of reiterating what I said earlier. Have you totaled up the entire town's electrical load by building wastewater treatment plant, street lights, parks, streets and recreation department, and other departments to ensure that we will have sufficient electricity to meet the town's total electrical load by season? Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Wade, I can let you, Niles, you guys can address that one if you want. I have a pretty good idea what you're going to say.
Sure. What we're looking at here is not all the residents of the town of Poolsville, but the town of Poolsville, government itself, and the buildings. So yes, we do have a log and know exactly what municipal buildings use. Right now, we're covered about 80% by renewable energy just from our wastewater plant itself.
Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but what about during the winter, snowplows? Are we going to have electric vehicles that are going to be snowplows?
They currently do not make a vehicle that would be adaptable
Okay.
for snow plowing at the size that we have to use.
Okay.
So we're looking at what we have, and this is a goal. We're not bound by this by any means. It's just a goal, and I shouldn't say it's just a goal, but it's something that I think we'll probably strive for. There's a lot of avenues out there to take care of it, from doing solar community co-ops.
Yeah, I understand.
So there's tons of different ways to do it.
But the thing is, when you get into a co-op and you have a co-op and things go down, it means you're part of a larger organization. And if it means a brownout for
No,
Poolsville.
really, it'll be exactly, no, we're still connected to the grid.
Okay.
If the solar array doesn't run it, you still have to go to Third Potomac Edison, and it's still all connected to the grid. They store the energy, it's like we have no way to store it.
Okay.
So yeah, it's almost similar to what we do with our 1.1 megawatt system we have now, identical. Would be an option of how to, one way to get that last 10%.
Okay, all right.
Well, I think, thanks to Joyce, is she still here? Preston, during our parks meetings that we have monthly, he generally gives us a little bit of an update on equipment that he might have swapped out for electrics. And I know he has some of the blowers and I think a chainsaw, but he has said several times that in terms of the mowers, the big batwing mowers, they're not powerful enough yet on electrics, and also the snow plows. So the electric trucks are, of course, an upcoming thing, but they're not beefy enough to push snow yet. So he definitely continues to look at that, and yeah, and I thank Joyce for bringing that up, during several of our meetings. So thanks, Jerry.
Yep. And with respect to the chicken thing, is that supposed to go to the planning commission first? It's already been there?
Mhm.
I know the ordinance was passed and went through there, but any revisions to it, shouldn't that go back to the planning commission?
The commissioners decide that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
Joyce, you're taking another swing at the bat there? Yeah, go on. Yeah, that's fine.
The person who asked the question left though, so.
Yeah.
You gonna tell us about Poolsville brownouts?
Yeah, the guy that asked the question is now he's left.
Yeah, unfortunately. So I'm not here to, I didn't come up here to rebut or challenge anything that Jerry had to say. But I did just want to say that there were a lot of things commented there. Some things were mixed with things that had nothing to do with each other. And, there were things that were somewhat alluded to as facts that are I would, we need, devil's in the details. So I would love to have a conversation with any one of you who wanted to explore the various things that were put forth there and correct any things that I know of, that I don't know everything, but, that maybe were misstated or misunderstood. And in particular, because I did speak about the co-op earlier, I will speak to that one in particular. The co-op I'm talking about it's not like, they do have some kind of energy co-op-y kind of thing in other regions of the country where they actually have an electric utility that is a co-op. This is, the co-op I'm talking about and presented about earlier is not that. It's simply a buying, I'll call it a buying co-op. You know, if a bunch of people got together to do their asphalt driveways and get a break on the per driveway cost, that's what we're talking about in that regard. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Martin, you had something?
I was just going to say, Joyce, that I think that, we take any of this stuff with a grain of salt, and, we've heard from a lot of different people and done our own independent research, I think, and I think we have a pretty good idea of, what to believe and what not to believe, so.
Sure. No, and I'm not, I certainly respect Jerry, and everyone has a right to express their opinions, so.
That, and it's not, you're not offering contrarian opinions, you're offering additional opinions. That's fine. We appreciate it. Sprinkled with facts, too, on all sides. So thank you for that. We appreciate it, Joyce. Any other questions for Joyce while she's up there?
It's pretty clear.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Okay, that's enough. The only thing I want to say is you said the word co-op about 25 times, and it reminded me to talk about the grocery store co-op. And also, I'm hungry too because I haven't eaten yet. But and I do want to say to the group here that we do have a grocery store co-op meeting. It looks like it's going to be this Monday coming up at Town Hall. I will alert everybody, including the town, via all the regular messaging stuff. So I'll get with you on that. That just kind of broke today. Thank you, Joyce, for the reminding me on that one. Appreciate it.
Maybe we have to have a definition of co-ops because there's going to be a lot of different co-ops.
That's
around.
fine. Co-ops mean
good.
partnerships. There's nothing wrong with that. Partnerships are good. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Joyce.
All right, so the public comment time is over, but I do want to, of course, address the chicken conversation. Wade, if you want to give us a little background for how we got here, and then the commissioners can lead off with some commentary beyond that.
Sure, just to speak to the 100-foot setback from.
You can go a little bit from our process too.
Sure, no, it was actually a code enforcement activity that is why we met Elizabeth. And then she came forward with some friends and kind of lobbied the planning commission to develop an ordinance to allow chickens. This is probably the 5th time in the last 10, 12 years that we've visited, this topic. And it finally came all the way home. And when the planning commission was wrestling with it back and forth and developing their own regulations, they went ahead and decided, let's just use what the county uses, which includes that 100-foot setback from adjacent dwelling. We didn't really research why. That was in there, but that was came forward to the commissioners, and that stuck with it as we went through it, and we developed our own ordinance and trying to, make it all fit the best we could. Went through a public hearing process and then adopted the ordinance as is. So that's where we are.
Okay, and I thank you for bringing that back up. Go ahead, Martin, go ahead if you want to.
Okay, yeah, I just have a couple questions for you, Wade. The first is, when Elizabeth was testifying, she was saying that the 100-foot limit will, the 100-foot setback will limit how many homes in Poolesville can actually have chickens. Does that dramatically, affect a lot of residents?
Anything under half an acre, it will impact them, or the potential to have an impact.
Okay,
definitely.
and the other
Hang
question.
on for a second. That was, and I believe Elizabeth quoted 1 acre, and when we looked at this, it was, for the most part, anything half acre or above could have chickens with meeting our rules, and many of the 3rd acre could as well. So, with 100 foot.
So you're saying that most people that have a half acre can in fact have chickens?
The half acre, yes.
Okay. And the other question I have for you is, I guess, the obvious question here. Why should we not do a 50-foot setback, for example? What are the cons of it? We've heard the pros, but what are the cons in your opinion?
I guess the only cons would be if somebody wasn't a good steward of their chickens and perhaps didn't clean the coops, and then the odor became to be a problem, or they became a nuisance. I mean, that stands out. I've lived, my daughter has chickens. I mean, so if you take care of them, it's usually not a problem.
So
the chickens are the problem, it's the people sometimes.
Right.
I do want to contribute to this too, that, and a bit of a procedural order here. This went through, you managed to explain it in about 30 seconds, but it went through hours and hours and hundreds of hours worth of man-hours of discussion about this, about how the ordinance was going to be created, and what guidelines we were going to go by. And I don't want to shortchange. I personally, I've had chickens myself. I don't dispute anything in terms of chicken care for the people that know how to take care of them. But part of the reason why we adopted Montgomery County was, one, of course, they are going to be our enforcement arm to start things off. Once they get past zoning and permitting, then it's on Montgomery County. And the second is that when we decided to stick with what Montgomery County had, it was also in a reaction to very strong opposition that we had to the ideas of chickens in Poolesville. It's been a long time. I know Elizabeth has been here for a certain period of time, but we're talking about, in some people, decades of opposition to it. Now, not everybody that is opposed to chickens is dumb or doesn't know what chickens are, how chickens are taken care of. They just have opposition to them. And I'm not going to try and characterize their opposition, why they have it. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they've had bad experiences with chickens. Maybe they've had neighbors that have had pets that bug them, and that they don't want to have those, a further intrusion of some sort of pets bugging them if it can be prevented. I'm not saying those are right answers either, and I'm not saying I agree with them all. But we did have substantial people testify, both in writing and in person, why they would be opposed to having chickens in general. So all of us at our level, Planning Commission, thanks to input from residents, the commissioners themselves, we talked about this at length. And the 100-foot rule was never hidden. It was never disguised. I know you're not saying it was either. You helped us write this legislation. You helped us bring this to where we are right now. And for that, I'm appreciative. I think Poolesville is a better place with chickens. I'm very happy with the process that we went through. I do want to say also, too, that when we're talking about having, that Elizabeth is not allowed to have chickens, and we're talking about one person that has petitioned the town for this so far, and I appreciate the resident input as well. We have had, there is a variance capability and possibility for Elizabeth to have chickens, and for others, too, to potentially apply for a variance that would allow Elizabeth to have chickens. It would allow to have other residents that don't necessarily fit the 100-foot requirement inside their backyard, as the regulation says. And we are very open to discussing the variance. Now, the cost of the variance is not great. It's $650. It used to be 30, I think, back in the day when we first started this, but then we added up the amount of hours it took for all of our staff and the value of our staff's time to review each individual variance. So I say that I know that Niles has worked with Elizabeth specifically. Town staff in general is ready to work with any of our town residents to talk about what it would make to make chickens possible for them. We did the heavy lifting. We made it possible for people to do it. I think the rules that we set up, I like to give them a try and let them have some time to air out, as it would be, and see how we do. I am open to any of the commissioners' discussions. I'm not set in stone on this. I'd love to hear from everybody, but I wanted to give it a little more deep background into how we came up with what we did and what are the possibilities for Elizabeth to still have chickens, I think in essence about where she may want to have them. And I give town staff a lot of credit for working with everybody that's asked about this.
So another question for you, Wade. Jim spoke to the variance, that Elizabeth could get a variance. How realistic is that? Is that the BZA that she goes to?
Yeah, sure. First you get a recommendation from the planning commission and then on to the BZA.
So if the planning commission doesn't recommend it, then it's dead in the water?
It still goes to the BZA no matter what.
Okay, and do we have any sense as to,
So she would have to make a case for a hardship of her property, either way it's shaped, the way the houses are centered on a block area that are different from another part of something that's certainly different and specific to that piece of property, why they should be granted a variance.
I'll just open the discussion on changing it. Based on what you've said and what people are saying, I don't personally have a huge problem with changing it to 50 feet, and I'd love to hear from everybody else here on this board what they think, but that's where I stand. I mean, unless somebody can tell me we really shouldn't do this because of this, but it doesn't sound like there's something, really dramatic there, so.
Yeah, I think there is inconsistency with how we treat chicken pets differently than other pets. I I am annoyed sometimes by neighborhood barking dogs or cats that cross into my yard, but it's also just part of living in a community and being around people. And when I have a problem, I just go to my neighbor and I say, hey, this is happening. What can we do to fix that? And we figure it out. I do realize that some people might struggle with healthy communications with their neighbors. And so like, I understand why some people might want sort of the safety net of these types of ordinances, zoning regulations. I personally don't see a need for any particular regulation. We don't do that with dogs. Dogs can jump right up against the fence right next to the neighbor's house. And they're louder and more aggressive and scarier for my kids than a few clucking hens. So I am also in support of lowering the number or getting rid of it altogether.
Did you say clucking hands?
Yeah. Yeah. That was a C. That was a C.
That was a good question. Thank you for that. I
Yep.
appreciate it, Sarah. You know, one thing I get multiple swings of the bat, so this is good. The only thing I would say is that the difference are between, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong here. And again, I had chickens. The difference between chickens and dogs are that dogs can come inside the house, and if they're barking, then somebody can let them in. But chickens, unless I'm wrong, they normally don't come in people's houses, or they're not part of the houses. Right. Okay, I get it.
They are contained
Yeah.
within a
One.
coop.
Right. Their own house, as it would be. Right.
Well, I certainly wouldn't advocate, like having no setback. I'm just saying that, maybe 50 feet is sufficient. I don't know.
I want to add my 2 cents.
Jeff.
Well, a couple of things, because I just want to be clear about the enforcement, right? Because I know, Jim, you mentioned that Montgomery County enforces it, but I want to be really clear. Montgomery County does not come with a tape measure and check your setback. The only thing Montgomery County will do, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Wade, is if there's animal abuse, right, and they do something about it. They're not going to come and check how the distance is. That's not their job to enforce a municipality's ordinances. The other thing is, I'd kind of like to give this a little more time at the 100 feet, right? We have, I don't know how many permits were issued.
There's been 4 applications and there's been 3 permits issued.
Okay, so there's one denied, yeah.
One
One's
in
part of this discussion.
Oh,
is
okay,
this
right, right.
discussion.
Yeah. Okay, well, anyway, I'd just like to give this a little more time, and if there's a lot of people that, if 80% of the people were denied because they don't fit the 100 feet, then maybe we should reconsider.
But also, who's not applying because they look at what that 100-foot setback is and they think, well, I won't qualify, so they're not
Yeah,
even.
you might not know that, right?
Right.
I don't think we should change the, no offense, Elizabeth, but I don't think we should change the rules just for one person. But if there's no compelling reason not to change them, when we passed this, we knew this was like a work in progress and that we may have to reshape it or retool it at some point. Now, it's a little early for the retooling, probably. You could say, we just passed this several months ago. But again, I get back to my point of if is there a problem with 50 feet? If not, I don't know, what's the big deal? But that's just me.
What I would look at, has anyone, besides Elizabeth, has anyone come to you asking for a variance or asking for an exception because of that?
No, I mean, as I just said, all the other applications have fit the criteria of the code, so therefore they've just been granted, so.
And Martin, to your point about the 50 or whichever feet, whether it's 15, 25, 50, 100, I think we have to go back. I don't personally know enough to hear both sides. I've heard one side, but I have not seen any opposing side and haven't heard. All right, and I think when I look at all of the time that had been put in for people to voice their opinions, and you know what it is hearing their voice. And so I would want to hear voices from all stakeholders. All right, I have my own personal opinion about chickens, and I voted that way when it was up for the vote. But I do think that there is, in our role, or my role, it's important to hear both sides, though. Even if I don't necessarily agree with another side, I still need to hear the other side, because I think about everything that went in to get to that point as well. For those who weren't happy with the 100 feet, those who said, okay, I can live with 100 feet, because it's not just about my own personal opinion, but it's really listening to both sides and then coming up with a sound decision after I've listened to both those who are for, those who are against.
You know, again, the variance process exists for a reason, and I'm going to stand behind that. We worked hard on this as we put it together. Again, I was not in favor of it, but all the input that came in from our residents, the successful conversations, I think, that took place at the planning commission level as well as the commissioners. We heard plenty of opposition at the time. I think part of our shaping of our regulations was based on both what Montgomery County does, however it's based, and what our residents also had to say too. And I'm not going to negate just the conversations from the residents that didn't necessarily agree with it. You have a variance process. I realize the variance process is not cheap. It is the cost of town staff putting together, what it would take to potentially create a variance. I understand from Niles that there is her property is available for that variance.
So
Or-
what I would say is, I took a look a little bit at this just to sort of get a sense when I was reviewing the application, and I noted that on the side of the property, the side with the open field next to it, if you were to put a coop there, it would fit the 100 feet setback there from all of the current neighbors. The
And
ordinance
what's-
itself.
Sorry, one question for you too.
Yeah.
What size is Elizabeth's property? Is that 1/3 acre zoning? now?
I'd have to. Yeah.
15,000?
Mhm.
Okay, I
Yes.
couldn't remember if it
Yeah.
was 1/3 or.
But yes, so by looking at placing it potentially in the side yard, you could meet those distance requirements. Now, the ordinance itself explicitly says rear yard. So so in doing my review, that also came into what, because it specifically says rear yard, even that location would not fit under the ordinance as is. So, because the other thing to note is, in the code, there's a specific definition for front and side, or front, side, and rear yard that is a little unique.
What proportion of houses in Poolsville are third acre? So I'm understanding that anybody who's on a third acre, this could be pretty difficult.
Probably about at least a third.
Okay. Okay.
Not including the townhouses. Right.
That seems like a lot of residents who would be excluded from,
Could be.
yeah.
And again, there is availability we looked at a lot of these houses, and it wasn't enough to make a difference to us on the 100-foot rule. So I get it. We want to be everything to everybody, so.
What I'm hearing is that it sounds like there's not the votes here to change this tonight, but maybe we do, a listening period or whatever, and come back, revisit this in a certain amount of time and talk about it again. But I will remind everyone that Kevin Schramm, when he was a planning commissioner, he called all the local ordinances and asked if they had any problems with chickens, and including all the ones with the 15-foot setbacks and 25-foot, and everyone said no, it really hasn't been a problem. We don't have any can't recall any complaints or any problems at all. So, so I think we should, at the very least, if we don't take some kind of action tonight, revisit this in a little while, and if we're possibly disenfranchising a third of the people that have third-acre lots, or up to a third.
Well, you can make the same case for the townhouses too. They're
Yeah, yeah.
disenfranchised as well. So I kind of buy into that, and I kind of don't buy into it. Also too, hang on for 1 minute. Elizabeth, when you bought your property here, I mean, do you plan on having chickens, and then you thought that we would be able to, do what you did, which was a successful changing of our code? Did you know that at the time?
No, I thought chickens were allowed because, on the corner of Fisher Avenue and, it's right after your house,
Westerly, right, yeah.
There's a house there where there's a chicken coop clearly visible from Fisher as well as Westerly.
Mhm.
And then, the town, other areas have seen chickens in the backyard, went into Tractor Supply and saw chickens for sale. So everywhere I lived, chickens have been allowed as pets in people's backyards without any constraints at all. So I naturally assumed that I did too. I think
Again, and I also appreciate everything you brought to the table on all this. It's been an eye-opener for us. Go ahead, Mhm.
Yeah, it is.
I just wrote to Barton, I said this earlier, I said, start up a GoFundMe, I'll be the first one to contribute to it if somebody thinks that the cost is prohibitive. I don't like the cost either, but it is what our, it is a.
We have state requirements to actually advertise in different new publications, and the attorney has to write an opinion. I mean, so it's the exact cost of what it does to do the hearing.
And to Martin's word, which maybe I'm cutting him off here, but I'm all in favor of a listening period too. The door's been kicked open. We thought came up with what I heard from a lot of residents was a really successful conversation, process, et cetera, kicked off by Elizabeth. And I'm not afraid to continue listening and to see how things go over a period of time and see how our applications work and how this process goes. So anybody can call for motion if they want to, or we can have a consensus.
Wade, I'm curious, if somebody pays the $650 fee to get a variance and they get denied, do they still have to pay that fee?
Absolutely, it's at risk, definitely. And then anybody who's not in compliance right now, code enforcement actually takes effect tomorrow.
And if the let's say the variance gets denied, they've paid the fee, and then the code changes, still don't get any of that back, because it's a sunk cost, right? Because it's people's time. Yeah, that's pretty.
And that's all codified. I mean,
risk.
it's the way the code is written, so.
How are our fees compared to other places in the county for our variance fee?
Oh, minuscule relative to Montgomery County itself, the thousands of dollars for a variance.
Even in the Village of Martin's additions where I served before, variance was $1,500.
So if Elizabeth applies for variance, we do not raise our prices until that's over with.
I would say don't raise your prices at all.
Okay, got it.
Bad joke.
I'm not being dead serious. I know we revisit these costs all the time. Again, Commissioners,
Real quick,
Sure.
going back, the other option, and Wade, correct me if I'm wrong, and that would be going through the planning commission
That's the first step in the variance process.
in the variance process? But even if there was wanting to review the ordinance, would that go with us, or would that go
Like,
with
what
the
are our
planning?
potential processes forward?
That is if you wanted to amend the ordinance, you can do it yourselves, or you could send it back to the planning commission for their review and
For the review?
recommendation.
All right. Yeah, this is a thought,
Okay.
looking at the planning, because of the investment that was made in it, so I'm just thinking out loud.
That's to the purview of the board. I'm not sitting there saying I would support it, but at the same time, the board does have that ability to do it. I'm in favor of a cooling off period and allowing this process to take place and see how chickens actually do in Poolesville. I do feel responsible to the amount of residents that came forward and said they did not want to have chickens. And I don't necessarily think that they're dumb or they don't understand or they don't like chickens. I just think that they have, as property owners, they also have rights. And I'm respecting those rights, and I've heard from them.
I totally agree. I respect what they have to say, and they certainly have rights. The only thing I keep getting back to is that it was like more than 2/3 of the people, or maybe it was more than 3/4 that we heard from favored it. So, but I'm fine with a cooling off period, or a listening period, and but I do think it's fair to take this back up in the future and either say yes or no. And if we can find no compelling reasons not to change it, then maybe we change it. I don't know.
Given that the planning commission originally recommended going by county setback of 100 feet, would it make most sense to kick it back to the planning commission and get a recommendation on whether it makes sense to keep it 100 feet or to review that decision?
I think you could go either way. I mean, I think this board is capable of doing it just as we took the situation, and sort of like just said, okay, let's just do this ourselves real quick, and, appreciate the work of the planning commission, but we're gonna change a few things, and, so I think either way, you could do it either way. You could send it back to the planning commission, and, they could have a listening period, or, seek, citizens' comments, resident comments, and then come back to this board, or we could just do it ourselves. It doesn't really matter. I mean, yeah.
I'd be in favor of no less than a 6-month timeframe. And I know that doesn't do Elizabeth a lot of good for her current coop situation, but we don't rule for just one person in this town. And I think that we need to, again, nothing has changed from the hard work that went into this decision earlier. And I know that it's compelling, and I get that. But at the same time, we've made decisions, and to flip on 1 month later or 2 months later with one person's testimony with several people, pitching in after the processes went through, I think it cheapens the work of the people that did the work prior to this.
Well, I want to agree with that because, I'll just repeat myself again, that if we had 50% of the people being denied, then we probably did something wrong. But right now, we don't have that situation, right? Wade and Niles, yeah. So, yeah, we do have one person, and that certainly counts. But if we went 6 months and then all of a sudden we had a deluge of people being denied because they had 80 feet setback or 90 and they didn't quite make 100, then, maybe we should reconsider that. But I think, to me, it just feels too soon to change our mind about stuff.
What is the permit application cost? If, say that people were going to, that they were going to make a go for it and then start submitting permits, applications that may not be able to be fulfilled.
Right. This is under the $30.
Okay. I just want to make sure it wasn't cost prohibitive for
And they-
people
Right.
to try.
They only
Pay if it's
make the
approved.
permit up for approval.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Denied, it's not paid.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. So, Commissioners, your direction on this, I'm in favor of a 6-month minimum cooling period where we let the resolution that we came up with and the code that we designed play forward and then see how we do. I know it doesn't feel great because
No, it doesn't feel great, but
I like giving everybody
I
everything.
feel like 6 months, as a small business owner, I know all the time I move forward with something and it needs to be massaged or tweaked. And that's just part of making decisions. You have to make the decision with the information that you have in the moment, and then you learn more and you're like, okay, we need to make a small adjustment. I don't see this as flipping or reversing. This is to me, just an adjustment.
We've had this proposed at least 5 times over the last 20 years since I've been here. And I'm very proud of the work that the group did to bring this forward and make this possible for our residents. Again, I rely on us letting it air itself out a little bit. So if we can bring a motion to a vote to change it, if somebody wants to, you might as well, get it out of the way one way or the other. So other than that, then we can stay by maybe not unanimous consensus to hang on and let the process work and see how it does.
Well,
Sure.
What Sarah just said, would this be considered as like an amendment to the code?
Correct. We would be amending the code. It would be amending the code, period. Not an amendment to, not an addition to, but actually a change of code.
So that would be able to be repealed in the future?
It would be able to be repealed. Just like this one is being talked about being repealed right now.
Well, we're not repealing the whole,
No, but you can repeal a
You
section
could.
or even a word.
yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Which I wouldn't
Sorry,
like to
I
see.
don't-
I don't want to see that happen either.
Well, I think that I'm fine with opening this up for discussion and like hearing from residents and so forth. But we don't have to specifically say 6 months for sure, right? Like if we get a lot of input, and 3 months from now there's a compelling reason to make a change, or to say to close the door and say we don't want to make a change, we can do it sooner than that, right? We don't have to wait 6 months. We can be flexible, right? And I do agree with what Sarah's saying. I don't think this is like a, oh my gosh, we're totally changing. I think this is like something new in uncharted territory, and we're just kind of like, we could fine tune it if we decide to. But I'm not going to make a motion tonight because it seems premature, and it seems, and I know the support's not there. I think there's no harm, I apologize, Elizabeth, but no harm in like listening for a couple months and like getting input and, maybe revisiting it in 3 months or something like that, if we have a compelling reason, one way or the other, to either say, yes, let's address it, or, no, we don't want to address it, but that's how I feel.
I'm open to that.
Okay. All right.
All right, so no action taken tonight, except for good listening and good testimony, and we appreciate all of the feedback from everybody that's been in the room, and also that those that have written and those that helped shape the law in the past. It's most appreciated in the conversation amongst the commissioners, too. All right, very good. Thank you for that, everybody. Approval of the minutes, approval of the April 3rd meeting minutes. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I motion we approve the April 3rd meeting minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor of the minutes, please say aye. Aye.
Thank you all.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Yep. Not sticking for the rest of the meeting? No response. Yeah, that's fine. Nice of them to be here. Okay, minutes have been approved for the April 3rd meeting. Old business, 100% renewable energy resolution. It's in your agenda, the resolution itself. We talked about it last week. Jeff, you had a chance hopefully to read it from the last go-round. And I think the rest of us were okay with it, but if you had commentary after you read it last time, or Martin?
If anyone doesn't have any commentary, I'll make a motion because I read it last time and it seems reasonable. You good with
Are
that?
you okay with that? Yes. Okay, motion's been made by
All right,
Martin.
I make a motion, we
Oh, I think you
approve.
did already had it.
Huh?
I thought you just did make the motion.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 001.23, introduced April 3rd, the town of Poolesville, 100% renewable energy.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Martin, second by Ed. Thanks to everybody for their hard work on this and also reading it. We appreciate it. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Great. Thank
Now,
you.
I'll remind people too,
Yeah.
if anybody's upset about this, that this is something we're going to try correct me if I'm wrong here, we're going to try our best to make this, we're going to do everything we can, but it's not 100%
Right.
binding. If something catastrophic happened and we had to like back out of it or something like that, we could, but we will try, we're committing to trying to do it. Yeah, good.
Thank you for that. Okay, old business. So Martin brought up, and we actually talked about it right after Betty's testimony about at the last meeting where she stepped in during our closed session, which was a breath of fresh air, I guess, to talk about Fisher Avenue safety and speed. Town staff and I had a conversation again about it this morning, and so tell us where we are right now, guys. And I have a new plan, but I want to hear what you guys got to say.
So after Betty's comments, I reached out to Commander Hettenberg to get a traffic enforcement to look at this issue. So she said she would refer it to the traffic officer. So they should be doing more of that, and we'll see. I'll touch base again on that. And then we also have asked for a speed study of Fisher Ave from Wooten and Westerly all the way sort of down to 109, just to sort of cover the entire breadth of it to see where we're at in terms of speeds and the volume of speed that we have. So those are sort of the two actions that staff has taken since that conversation. So the Montgomery County Police actually do the study. It's their trailers. You've probably seen them before, where they have the speed. Yeah, but they're, yes, correct. Correct. So what they do is they put it in what is called ghost mode, where you can't see your speed, but it's still recording. So.
Sarah just blows right through this.
I do think this is an important thing. I mean, like I live right here, and I can see what happens. I mean, I've recently saw motorcycles pass a pickup truck going, it had to be like 50, 60 miles an hour, and
Was that your gym for breakfast?
probably no, actually it wasn't that day, but occasionally there are some. Did you see it?
Very fast.
Yes.
Thank you for saying that.
I walk most places here, and it's terrifying how fast.
Yeah,
people-
I speed too, and like I think we are probably all speed on these roads, but like you can't do it in town. You can't
town,
like
though.
there are
That's what I heard
people
by
here,
the
and like there are little kids, and there are like people with dogs, elderly people, on these roads, and we have the unique problem when someone stops with a crosswalk and someone else is speeding and they think the person's turning, they just whip around and they can't see what's happening. I mean, like there are big problems here, and I think if we don't do something, And I know we're going to do something in 3 years or whenever we can get this money, but if we don't, in my opinion, if we don't do something sooner rather than later, like we could be facing like, somebody getting hurt or worse. I don't know. I know we don't have like a ton of money, but like, I don't know if at some point after the study, we could do bump outs, we could do raised crosswalks, whatever the baby steps we can take, is anything we can do would be a little bit better. And the flashing crosswalks are a big start. I mean, they help. But, I think that, we're going to regret it if we don't do something, because it's a problem.
So I'll go back and say with the, doing the work that you're doing now, I think that's a good first start. I think at a lower level also, even if it's some type of campaign, some type of messaging that can go out to the community as well about pedestrian safety and speed. And we think about the young lady who got hit in the crosswalk earlier this year, and I'm glad she's doing much better now. But being able to, it's schedule some time to just have social media blitz, putting those messages out there about remember to slow down, remember, come up with something crafty. And I think having that message right before the speed thing comes out, and then even after it gone, so before it comes, while it's there, and then after, because then that kind of says, oh, you're putting the two together, and it's like some folks might say, wait a minute, something's getting ready to happen. There's an issue, something like that.
I'm going to add to it was that in our conversation today, first of all, I asked the guys to look at their budget to come up with the peer pressure signs that we can put on Fisher Avenue that will display the speed and then flash red. And not only to alert the drivers themselves, but also to the people around them that potentially somebody's speeding by.
And it takes a picture and posts it right to Facebook.
It would be great if it did it.
Well, it also could be accompanied by a sign that says radar enforced.
Yeah, or something. We need to, we're going to look into spending a few bucks to try and Fisher Avenue being the focus of it.
Yeah, good.
And the other thing I wanted to do was, so this was my idea, and I'm not, this sounds like I'm taking it lightly, and I'm not, was that we would, and we talked about this today, set up a dummy machine that has a strobe light on it, that has something that will tick off. Because the people do, and I can do my own traffic studies. It's right in front of my house. I know exactly how people go. And the more people that have figured out exactly how the cameras work at that end of town, it's made a difference in how their activity has been. So couple that with really a lack of enforcement up here from Montgomery County, and that has been profound. So I appreciate, the reaching out to the captain version of this, but I think it's going to be a three-pronged thing. I think it's going to be social media. I think it's going to be our own signage that's going to change.
Like an active pedestrian sign or something like that, like you're entering a pedestrian district, or I don't know, something like that. I do think it's, as these other things come online, I think the ferry at some point will probably open, and that's not going to help the speed situation. I mean, I want it to open, and I think when Crossvines open, I mean, you're just going to have that many more cars, that many more people that don't realize that Poolesville is a small town with people crossing the road a lot and stuff. And these other roads out here, it's easy to go fast because there's good sight lines and there's not a lot of pedestrians and the occasional cyclist. But I think in town, we got to work on it. I'm glad to hear you guys are working on it.
And I would just love to maybe also loop in, I don't know, the high school somehow with some peer conversations or something. Someone who works for my company, her 16-year-old son was just in an accident with 7 other 16-year-old boys all crammed into a car, 3 of them not wearing seatbelts, stuffed in the back trunk, 25 mile per hour zone. Boy was going 60, rolled the Jeep 3 times. Jeep's totaled. I mean, and he's going to it's going to change the course of his life, this boy who was driving, and also it was terrifying and harmful for everybody else in the truck. Not seriously. Yeah, not seriously. Luckily, it was very miraculous. But yeah, I just think especially teens tend to think they're indestructible. And I know it's biased to just say what I see, right? But that's who I'm seeing speed. Well,
Our streetscape can't come soon enough. We talked about that
Right.
today as well.
Right.
And then on top of it, I do think unless anybody's got opposition to it, we really do try to formulate a 4-pronged strategy to this, which is
Pulling all our stakeholders.
yeah, and let's do electronic signs. Let's do the speed monitoring to see what they come up with. Let's bug Montgomery County to give us, some occasional coverage on Fisher Avenue would be helpful. And let's start, and then we can potentially do some sort of social media between all of us talking about it and bring it to the forefront.
I was thinking about this the other day. Is it possible that Poolsville could contribute money to Montgomery County so that we had one police officer
What did you just say?
here?
We pay taxes.
We-
pay county taxes. What are you talking about?
I know, we're always saying we need.
The off-duty
we would like to
security,
have-
that's the police
We would like to
officer.
have more presence. Well, we would like to have more presence of Montgomery County Police here.
You can
And we
hire-
say that again and again, and it doesn't happen.
You can hire an off-duty officer, just like Barnesville does, and I forget what the price is right now per hour, but there's an hourly price.
Why don't you guys look into it and just see what it is?
It used to be 50, but it's gotta be
Yeah.
more now.
It's expensive. I talked to the Barnesville guy, the police officer. It's double their normal rate. So it's still fine. I mean, it's worth it, I think, to have a conversation.
And maybe that conversation is that maybe that piece is paid in addition to them putting some man hours or some hours here.
Yeah.
And so that might be a muster campaign for you.
It's a good point. I'll talk to the Barnesville mayor about it and have a conversation, how their hiring process. So thank you, Jeff. I didn't mean to react. I just got blown away by us paying Montgomery County for anything. So, but you're right. You're on track for that. Yeah.
Property tax now, I think.
Yeah. We could put a safety tax on. No, I'm just playing. Turn off that.
I know, stop.
No taxes, no taxes.
No.
Emails are gonna start blowing up.
No, I know, that's okay.
Jim wants to raise taxes.
Raise taxes for chickens. Okay, guys, very good conversation. So we do have a plan of action. I'll get with town staff. Thanks, Martin, for bringing it up. It was awesome for Betty to step up to the plate again, like she always does, the conscious of Poolsville and her ideas. And we'll take it from there. That was, anybody else on safety and speed?
I do like the idea about pedestrians. You know how you have those signs that say children playing, but even if you have something, you're entering a heavy pedestrian zone, something like that. But something to alert that, because if you do all of that and someone still continues to do that, or they hurt somebody, and you've done all these things, I mean, then that person really has to be held accountable for their actions.
We'll come up with a plan. We have to look at signs that actually comport to the manual of traffic control devices, so we'll look and see what we can do.
And maybe when you talk with the traffic folks, ask them, what other recommendations do they have? Ask them to partner up with us when they get those
What kind of
numbers.
successes have they seen in other communities too? I would love to talk to some other towns that are similar.
Is it expensive to
size
put
as
in?
us, 'cause I'm sure they experience the same challenge.
But some of the language I would use with them is that we want you all to partner up. We prefer for you to come down more regularly, but at a minimum, we expect that you all will partner up with us and then do everything else.
So, you bear with me here for a second. You know the little pylons that are flexible. You can actually drive over them and they just bounce back. They don't hurt your car. Are those expensive to put in? We have them down on
No,
Wooten.
not bad at all, no.
Because one thing off the top of my head, and maybe I'm crazy, but bump outs are more expensive because they're more permanent, but people slow down when things get narrow. And what if you were to put like through town lanes with those things where there was brake for turning?
They do work okay. When it gets colder, they break off, people run them over. We replace the ones up here at the corner at least twice a year. But there's other ways to do it too, just with painting. And we're talking about, Streetscape has redefining where the lines are. There's gonna be middle turn lanes. I'm not sure how expensive that would be, but what that might be, and then crosshatch on the sides to make it have the appearance of islands coming in. I don't know, we could just take a look and see what we could do. I mean, those are things off the top of our head, and I get what you're going, but we should consult the professionals and let them help us with that. I agree,
In lieu of the fact that it looks like that, despite our best efforts, and the guys right now are working through, Wade will talk about in the town manager's report, about having to figure out a way not to delay the implementation of Streetscape. So, anybody else have anything on that issue? Okay. Town manager's report.
Okay, for those of you that are going to the MML conference, there's a sheet in front of you here. Bobby just needs to know, if you can just email her or whatever, what luncheons or receptions, or if you're gonna have a guest with you, just so she can get everything lined up and pre-ordered.
Does anyone else
probably go. I have to look at the dates.
I'm gonna go Sunday, and I will leave Monday night after the Montgomery chapter dinner.
I'll be in Atlanta.
And I'm gonna go.
You still get to stay at the wonderful Princess Royale Hotel?
Because he's never stayed there. Don't ask Wade.
I always stayed a little bit away from the commissioners, it was just safer. You're welcome, you are welcome anytime, all of you. Okay, so if you guys could just get back with Bobby, hopefully this week would be great, so. Okay. Excuse me. Installation of the pad for well 3 started today. We're gonna get that in this week. That's to hold the filters, and we have locked into mid-May for the units being delivered. So it's all a go. Jeez. Summer camp's also a go. Niles and Kathy have all that all worked out.
Take it a minute and clear up. It's okay. Turn your mic off. You're good.
I do.
Do you want me to grab a water?
No, I'm good, I'm good.
Have to get the first aid training settled?
Good.
Yeah, so she's gonna get back in touch with you on that.
Okay.
Just because they all approved what we've done, it's just a matter of scheduling, but I'll get back to you on that.
And then on that same note, so yes, you had mentioned the Stevens AED. We're gonna have that installed prior to June 3rd, but June 3rd is the date that we're going to have the training session with the seniors and the pickleball club. So I don't know, they're probably, this foundation's probably gonna be reaching out to the local fire department to have them assist in that, or even do the training, so. And then also for the AED, we have to sign up with the 911 station, so maybe you can help with the contact there, Jeff.
Well, yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, but I already contacted, did I get an email from you, or maybe it was Niles?
Me.
That said that the device, the AED is going to put on a post somewhere, I guess, right?
It's gonna be bound to the concession stand at Stevens.
Yeah, and when, when, let's say you needed the AED, you have to call 911. 911 will give you a code to open the box and take the AED.
Yep.
Now, I asked Chief Graham if he could coordinate that with ECC, Emergency Communications Center. I haven't heard back from him yet.
Okay. Gotta do that little piece, then then it's a go, everything's
Yeah.
rolling that, okay. Yeah,
Quick on conversation with Chief Graham. Did we ever get what we needed for them for July 4th?
no, not one peep.
Okay, I'll follow up and we'll work with Jeff on that. Thank you.
The final pieces of equipment for the redoing the audiovisual system in here are supposed to come in the end of May. So as soon as they do that, I know they'll finally, it'll take like 3 days to do the job. So, I know. It'd be nice. Yes. We've been waiting for 8 months for all the pieces to come in, so
Yeah.
getting close. Street sweeping that we had advertised for tomorrow is canceled, and it's gonna be next Tuesday. So we're gonna have to re-advertise. The contractor canceled.
And I already put something out on Facebook about it before the meeting, so we'll do more.
This before, but you guys are doing a great job. Town Hall's doing a great job at like promoting stuff like noticeably better than we did,
Yeah,
you know,
Niles,
before.
he's on that.
And that's great. Like I love the emails that have the multiple things, and yeah, good work.
We've also been working through some solutions with the sail carriers and the painting of the water tower. We had another meeting today with them. If you take all the cell towers off of the tower right now, it's for a 2-month period, finding an auxiliary location that they can put them up and still stretch the cables to it is like the high school's the only property. There's not enough room inside the site anymore, so basically the town and the surrounding areas would lose pretty much 90%, 100% of its coverage for those 2 months. And so we're trying to work through, you know, how we can do this. Contractually, the carriers are obligated to take their stuff off the tower, and it's their problem. So we're trying to get everybody in the same room. We may end up doing a whole framework built up around the tank that they can mount their antennas to the outside of, but the painter has concerns that, you know, they have to be turned off during the day, even though they're working behind them because of radiation issues. And so we're working through all these details to trying to get this worked out, so. You just, yeah. Last time it wasn't so bad because there's only a couple of carriers and there was room underneath the tank for them to do it. So, yeah, so it's pushed back a little bit, and hopefully we can get it all worked out. So that's a fun one we're working with. And then streetscape, you brought that up, Jim. Yeah, so we did meet with State Highway, so we have to go through State Highway because all the federal funds are going through them. But then we also still have to go through all the federal processes also. So we've submitted our first request in for the engineering aspect of it to begin the work that we can use Clark Azar, because the federal guidelines say that we have to actually have specific bidding requirements when you go out and you rebid for the engineering firm to do it, and there's all kinds of processes involved with that. So we're trying to not have to go through that whole process and be able to use our own engineering firm. They said it's usually 2 to 3 months to get a reply back from every time we submit something. That's why it's taking till 2025 to be able to do the construction, so we sent off our first one 3 weeks ago, and we've not heard anything back yet. So that's a slow go on every aspect of that one.
We
But we
appreciate
keep
you
pushing.
staying on top of it.
Yeah, we'll just keep on pushing. That's really all I have for now.
Quick question. I think Commissioner Brown circulated a photograph of the denitrification building. And when do you think that will be online?
They're saying possibly next year. They still have 2 other buildings to build, but
Oh, there's 2 more buildings.
yes.
Wow.
Smaller buildings, they're not big basin, holding the.
Yeah, the big block building is the one that's, and again, miles and miles and miles of rebar.
Yeah.
But the 2 other buildings that are not even sited yet, and we know where we're going to put them, but
Right, yeah.
they've still got to be to build. So,
It
but
gets
this is
on
the
paper.
biggest, toughest one right there. And again, if you guys haven't been down there, you got to go take a look at it. It's a huge structure.
I was just gonna say, when are we gonna have a waste treatment tour?
Tour, yeah.
We've just, because we had the roof contractor still working there also, so it is a little crazy right now down there.
And I just have another question about the PFAS. So you mentioned the pad was being poured at well number 3,
Yes.
and then, and the test is going to take 6 months or so?
It could
I'm
take-
just
it could
kind
take
of,
up to 6 months, yeah.
up to 6 months, so
We just had to prove it
I'm
works.
guessing maybe by the end of this year, we'll know if the filters work or don't work?
And so, yes, and around end of October timeframe, they're gonna be determining who's gonna be able to get some of that grant monies that we've applied for also. So it's gonna be the
Oh,
right timing.
MDE is going to give us grant money?
That's our hope,
Oh, it's our hope, okay.
yep.
What other municipalities are as far along as we are in Maryland, you know?
None that I'm aware of.
Oh.
No, we're like the first, we're kind of paving the way for it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That's it? Anybody? Motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second, third.
Motion from Martin, second from Sarah, third from Jeff, fourth from Ed, fifth from Jim. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? We're adjourned. Gavel.